All right, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us here for this special webinar event. My name is Nicole Neese. I'm the director here at marketing for Simsol. And so I just want to give a little background of why we're doing this webinar. As we know, our storm season is upon us. It's been a very busy season, especially with all the aftermath of all these hurricanes that have recently happened in Florida and in Texas. We understand that time is of the essence, and it's so important to take active measures when you're creating claims, especially now with so much of the volume of claims. As an adjuster, we want to ensure that the claims that the information you're putting in is correct and that it's also transferable as possible when it's time to send your claims to their carrier. It's also extremely important to back up your data in case anything happens, your hard drive fails, because Simsol is a Windows-based software and doesn't automatically back up. And so it's just nice to get into the habit of doing that. And so because of all these factors, we're putting together this webinar to help you be successful during storm season. Okay, now we're going to go through our agenda. We're first going to talk about the best way to set up Simsol, how to speed up the estimating process. We're going to touch up a little bit about reducing your claim size file, and then also talk about backing up your data, just some good practices and how to do that, and just kind of create a habit of backing up your claims. And the last about 10, 15 minutes or so, we're going to open it up to a Q&A session. All right, now let's get started. Again, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature. Depending on your question, we'll address it during the presentation or we'll leave it to the end. All right, now with further ado, I'm going to introduce Danny. He is our Director of Training here at Simsol. He's also an adjuster that has over 25 years of experience. How are you doing, Danny?
I'm doing well. How is everybody doing? Can you hear me?
I'm sure everyone can. If you want to go ahead and go on the Q&A, and you can just say here, I can hear you. That way we know that you can hear us. And so I'm going to go ahead and switch over the screen to Danny so he can start sharing. All right, Danny, do you see where you can go ahead and? All right, here we go.
Okay, can everybody see my screen as well as hear me?
Again, just go ahead and on the Q&A, you'll be able to see it. I see David can hear us, and Sean, and Debbie, and John. All right, looks like, yep, all right, looks like we have, all right, looks like you're good to go, Danny.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon or good evening, everybody. My name is Dan Sutliff, and I'm the Director of Training here at Simsol Software. And we're going to use some tips and tricks on how to speed up your system. A lot of it is done on the setup side, and everybody forgets to do that. So I want you just to look and see what we can do. And what this does on the setup side is every time you create a new claim, it copies this information. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is setting up the Simsol to work for you. And how we do that is we first want to come up and look at my screen here, and we're going to use maintain. All right, so when we come up and go maintain, there's an option called contacts. So as I click on the contacts, I'm going to bring this over. It takes me a second for me to pull the actual window over. So there we go. And I hope Nicole is recording this. So we have our contacts here. I have multiple contacts that you see right here: Donald Duck Adjustment Company, the insurance agency. Well, the key is if you put in the information once, you can then share it for all the remaining claims. Okay, so we're going to click on New, and then basically I'm going to bring over the screen. There we go. And then I can start filling this out. Now look at the different categories here. I have carrier/client, adjustment company, adjuster, contractor. You can just pick adjuster, and then on the last name, you can then just come up and say Donald Duck. Okay. Now you'll fill this out, and then you can also share. What's nice about Simsol is we can combine categories, so we can say it's part of the adjustment company as well, and then I can come up and then put ABC Adjusting. I can then address the address, mailing, and phone numbers, okay? Now, there are 3 different tabs on here. There's a business, a personal, and an other. We've been on the business tab, but it's important if you're doing flood claims, and probably in Florida and Houston, you're going to come up and then select other. On the other, I can also track my commission rate, which is kind of cool, retainage and expenses. But the big thing that we need to do is put that number in. So as we put that number in and then we select done, that is on any form that comes up within the Simsol, especially the NFIP forms, it's going to include that NFIP number. So that's really important. So as we get ABC in there and we make sure that it's good, I can then come up and select done. If you have an import V card from Microsoft Word Office, you can actually import these cards right into Simsol if you needed to do so. I'm going to click on done to get out of the contacts. And that's how easy it is to put a contact in. Oh, by the way, you can always add a contact on the fly, meaning I was outside of the actual claim file, but I can actually add a contact while I'm in Simsol claim file. So I'll show you that as well. The next step is pretty easy to do. It's called setting up your template. And from that, you can just come up and select preferences. So the command is going to be maintain preferences. On maintain preferences, what I like to do is enable location markup factor. What that does is when I go and set up the drawer, which I'm going to be going to next, you can see a markup factor that we can actually add up. So it could be 100, 100, 100 for the area like Florida. And then you can say, well, listen, since we're in a storm event, I can increase those prices by 15%. So it'd be 115, 115, 115. Easy enough to do by just selecting enable location factor markup screen. Another thing we want to do is make sure that we can put in our system header logo. So whoever company that you work for, you can then just select the logo from the list and they will email you their logo, but it has to be in a bitmap format. And that's an uncompressed format. So if they give it to you in a JPEG, you can simply just go to Paint, P-A-I-N-T program, search for it, pick it up, and then just open it up and just do File Save As a bitmap. So that needs to be in a bitmap format, okay? The next thing that's really important to do is come over here and then check your general contractor's overhead and profit. How many times do you have to go and select that each time you do a claim, okay? We can have it automatically selected by just coming up to GCO&P, selecting 10 and 10, making it non-cumulative, and with the third bullet, which is a percentage of RCV and ACV. That's what you want. But don't forget to do this. Exclude O&P on non-recoverable depreciation from RCV totals. That means that you're telling the computer, since if a trade is only ACV only, then why is the contractor getting the full RCV amount? So exclude on O&P on non-recoverable depreciation from RCV totals. That needs to be checked. On the header information, basically we just want to use the default header. Use the Simsol default header, you will never have a problem. Now the loss info screen, now this is where it's going to save you some time, because the loss info screen, I can come up and I can select what adjustment company that I'm working for plus my name as the adjuster. So for example, if I've already set up the contact manager, all those contacts are in memory. I can just simply come up, select adjuster, and then select Donald Duck instead of Mr. Mouse. And on the adjustment company, I can leave it at Donald Duck Adjusting Company. So that's good. On the carrier/client, basically, if you're only working for one client, then on the carrier, then you can select it. But I would recommend not to do that because it's going to change claim by claim. On the loss type, if you're only doing flood, then you can come over here and then just select flood, and that will automatically pick the loss type for you. And if you're doing a certain hurricane, like in a catastrophic event, you can then come up and then select 9/11 if you wish to do so. So I can come over here using my calendar and then selecting 9/11 and then selecting it. And the CAT number, this is a big one. They're cutting, they're actually rejecting prelims if you don't have the correct CAT number. So if I'm in Florida, it'd be 684. If it was for Houston, I don't have that off the top of my head, but if I'm doing claims in Florida, it'd be 684, and then I can select that. So you want to make sure that every time you do a new claim, it's going to put that 684, thus alleviating a rejection off the prelim. The next section that we have is notes, so you can put whatever note that you want in, and this is given to you by your prospective adjusting companies. They'll say, well, we want this cover page note, and they'll type it up. Usually what they'll do is they'll give it to you in a Microsoft Word doc, and then or an email, and you can just do a copy and paste. So you would mark the item with your mouse, and then use a Control-C, and then when you come up into Simsol in the cover page notes, you can then use Control-V to paste your text in there. So I'm not really going to go into that too much, but you can get that from your prospective adjusting companies. On sales tax and other, this is from what I've been told, Houston, they have to tax everything. So you could say material, totals, labor, overhead, profit, but you do want to exclude the sales tax on non-recoverable depreciation items. Leave the sales tax rate alone, because what you'll do is you'll use your table, sales tax table, when you create your estimate, and that will put the proper sales tax in, okay? Here in Florida, we would use material totals and equipment totals and then exclude from sales tax on non-recoverable depreciation. For the personal property side, make sure that you're on depreciation sales tax included in ACV totals. That way it's properly going to do a pro rata basis, so it'll tax the RCV side as well as the ACV side. The next one we're going to do is going to be, now this is if you solicit to ClaimsWire, which is our sister product, then you can actually just put your username and email address, and then it will automatically get your assignments for you automatically. The Signature Mentor, okay. Oh, it's 682 for Texas. I'm sorry, Sean said that. Good, thank you, Sean. That's going to be 682 for your Texas one. On the signature, though, this is kind of cool. What I tell everybody to do is you take a prelim, okay, if you're doing a flood claim, print out a prelim, put a prelim right next to a blank piece of paper on top of it, put a blank piece of paper on top of it, and then sign your name where it's supposed to go. That gives you the proper sizing. Then scan it at 100 DPI, and then save it as a bitmap. Okay, save the image. So what you're doing is you're coming up and then you're selecting that image and you've got it saved. Then all you need to do is click on Open Signature, find the signature in there, and then select it. I don't have one selected here, but it's got to be a bitmap. Here it is right here. I've got it set up. For mentors, for people who are new and you need the mentor signature, have the mentor do the same thing. Have them send you their signature, and then you can just use the open signature and place those in there. So that's basically what we need to set up for the preferences section. Is there any, I'll open up to any Q&A questions for that. Anybody needs anything on the preferences or the contacts?
Okay, it looks like Sean asked 682 for Texas.
Right, he was just saying that's the CAT number. That's what he's going to use for 682. 684 is for Florida. And because basically what's happening in Houston is, in Texas, is they've got the catastrophic number, and then if it's not on the prelim form, then they're rejecting them. So we want to make sure that every prelim has that 682 number for Texas. Okay. We're good there for our preferences. Any questions on the preferences before I move on? The next thing that we're going to do is click on Done. And I want to show you what's known as drawer properties. Drawer properties. Now, you've already probably had some experience on this, because if you're writing claims within the Simsol system, you had to create the drawer, okay? And on the drawer, you just come up, it's real easy to do. We're going to come up and select the drawer, or we can do a new drawer, and then come up and then select the properties on that. But I have to be on home to do that. See, now this is a common mistake. See where you have maintain, because I was just there? I need to come over and go to home. If I don't go to home, I will not be able to get to the drawer properties, which is right here. So I'm going to select that on the properties. That gives me a pre-existing drawer. If I want to do a new drawer, I can select it and it gives me the same screen. Okay. Now here on the drawer properties, I can control what kind of building repair registry we want to use, which is the complete repair registry for Simsol 8. We also have a brand new default global pricing table called third quarter. When you take those updates into the system, this is what gets updated. So this would be my properties for that. Remember that we update our pricing quarterly. So we're coming up to the fourth quarter here very shortly, so you should be getting an advance update for the fourth quarter pricing, which is going to be released here in a couple weeks. Okay. So be on the lookout for that. Now on the contents options, we can select, it's already set there by default, it's selecting the Simsol personal property with the 27 pricing guide. Remember that you can always go and use the building DB to update to the latest and greatest pricing update. So I'm going to click on building DB, see how we have two different types of databases. I can actually select, I can select the complete pair registry, but the second part of the equation is I need to hit the global pricing table. This is the latest and greatest, by the way. So I have two different pricing tables, one for the second quarter and one for the third quarter. The next one's going to be coming out in 2 weeks. When I click on the Done button, now remember in the preferences I asked for the markup factor screen to be included for the drawer, and that's what this did here. So that means that here I've got 100, 100, 100. I can then increase that. Since you're out on storm site, okay, I can come back and say, well, I want a 35% increase, 35% increase. And I'm setting that up for the drawer, so any new claim that I do is going to have now 135, 135, 135. I've seen markup factors running around 35 to 45%, okay, for pricing. You're going to start to all write your estimates now. You probably have already seen all your insureds, and you're just starting to write, okay? So as I do that, I click on Done. And that's going to actually speed up your process because you won't have to go and keep rewriting pricing, okay? So remember that the drawer pricing governs the name of the event, which is Houston Claims, and then I can also add a pricing increase to that database, which we just did. Is there any questions on the drawer properties that we have so far? Any questions whatsoever? You can always go to a pre-existing drawer, click on drawer properties, and then update that, just like I did here. Or any new drawer you do, you hit new drawer, and then select it and set it up. Okay, so I guess we have no questions, so we're going to continue on. I'm going to click on Done, and what that does is it returns me back to the system, and I'm now going to go into the system and continue on. The next one we're going to be doing is going to be called setting up your flood certification number card. And what you're going to do, what I do, is I take my card, okay, and I'm going to scan it, and I put that in as a JPEG, or what I could do is I could set it as a PDF. Either or will work, okay? So as I come in here and I need to put that in, I'm going to go into the claim file. And then from that, I'm going to go down to reports. I'm going to do a new report and click new. Now from that, I'm going to name this NFIP card. Sorry, excuse me. So once I've named it, I can then import it in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an insert graphic. Make sure that I'm on my line, then click insert graphic. Now from that, I'm going to go to my desktop, and then I'm going to find my logo, or my card, excuse me. Let's see here, mentor signature. Okay, let's see if we've got here. FCN right here, JPEG right here. Double click, and there's my card. And what I'm doing here is I'm just resizing it. So there's my card, and I've popped it in. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to then save it as a template report. Save it as a template report. So as I select that, I'm going to bring this over, and I can then put it into my user templates and click OK. That's permanently in there. So what I could do here is now I've got my NFIP card, and I need to use this report or NFIP report for the 2017 card that I have in there on all my correspondence. So if you're setting up a prelim packet, then you're going to need to put your NFIP card on, and that's the easiest way to do it. You can also do it by PDF by using our attached document section as well. So I can come up here, select new attachments, then select attached document, and then from that go to my location of where that's located. In this case, it will be in the FCN right here, double click. And that is another way of bringing it over. Hold on a second, I'm bringing it over here for you. So, excuse me. So as you can see, there it is there as a PDF. So then all I need to do is hit done, and it's now in as an attachment. Okay, so that's how I can attach my FCN card. If you use a pretty good scanner, mine was a little fuzzy, but if you could use a 300 by 300 DPI and then save it as a JPEG, that works really well. Okay, or you can save it as a PDF. So that's what you can do. Okay. Now the next section, any questions on the FCN card? I just want to make sure that when you sent your documentation that you're including your FCN card on that. Any questions whatsoever? Okay. The next thing we're going to talk about is actually speeding up when you're estimating. Okay, and what I'm going to do here is I want to show you what a macro can do. Okay, and then from that, and then show you how to edit a macro and apply the macro. So the first thing that we need to do is I'm just going to come into the living room here, and I have a pre-existing scope. And I'm just waiting for it to launch. Takes a second. It's a little slower because we're doing terminal emulating. And so here is our virtual scope sheet. So what I did is I put in, for example, a scope. Here's a typical scope. Okay. Now from that, I need to make a macro from that. I can do it two ways. One, I can do an assembly macro, which I can just come up and then pick up the French doors and then the remove and reinstall hardware. Or I can grab a typical room macro for like a living room. So let's do the first one first. So what you do is first thing that you need to do is define scope. Okay, so when you define scope, you're actually just doing what you see here, defining the scope. The second thing is I need to mark them for recording. So I'm going to hold the shift key down on the last and then hold the shift key to the first. Anything in the middle goes dark blue. If you do not see the line item in dark blue, it's not going to go in the macro. Okay, so make sure that everything is in dark blue. Then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to click on macros from the main menu. Please do not click this button. That's only a run only. We need to record the macro in order to play it. So I'm going to take my mouse, left click on macros, then going to hit macro record. From that, I'm going to drag over the window here and I'm going to give it a name. Okay. So on the name, let's say typical living room. So as I do that, I select it, I click done. Once you do that, it is now in the system. You can now come up and use this macro on any claim in your system. It could be in this claim, it could be in a future claim. Okay, macros. I've been using macros, the same ones that I've been using for years and years and years. And as long as the database does not change, then I can still use those macros regardless of what the GPT is or what the global pricing table is, because macros have no bearing on price. All it is just like a mini you picking all these line items and then remembering them, okay? So I'm going to click on Done here, and then I'm going to select a new area. On the new area, I'm going to call this master bedroom. So I can come over here and select M to go right down to the M's, and there's the master bedroom. I'm then going to put some dimensions in. I'm going to use a 20 by 20 with no offsets or closets or anything, just to show you that, you know, what the math is when it comes in. So as you can see now, I'm in there. I'm going to click on scope, and it's going to launch the VSS. Now from the VSS, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on list so you know that I don't have anything in there. And I'm going to now select that macro button, which is called macro, the one I told you not to push. Let me bring the window open. Let me drag that right over. There we go. And so these are my macros that I have. So for example, I have a typical living room, the one we just created, and I'm going to select done. As I do that, then the macro window will come up. Now this is a question and answer. Do you want to take this one, yes or no? What I do is I take the process of all macros on the original areas, and then I'm going to hit select and accept, excuse me, because when I do that, it will automatically load all those line items in, and then I can just delete the ones that don't apply. So here I've got my carpeting, my pad, I've got my base molding, French exterior door. Let's say for this bedroom, I don't have a French exterior door. Then I can just come up and then select the items that they're not relevant, and then I can delete them. Okay, so if I need to put a slider in, I can do that. So basically, you're trying to get the basic line items that you have for pretty much all the rooms, and then tailor it to what it's needed. So for in this case, let's say that I need to do a sliding glass patio door. There it is right there. I can say that it is a 10-foot sliding glass, or is it insulated, which I can just keep on scrolling down and it'll bring it up for me. There's a 10, there we go. And then once I do that, then I can pick the scope number. I can do 1 and 2, or I can do a 3, which is 1 and 2. Real easy to do. So now when I select it and I go back to list, these are the items that I have, okay? So I've got the remove interior door casing trim. I've got my single hung insulated window, so I can add that. So it depends on what you have. You make your macros up, and they are a lifesaver. So remember, make up a bunch of them. And a little trick for you is that if you take this scope and you want to name it something different, okay, with the new macro name, then you just add the items that are associated to that macro out, and then substitute the ones that don't apply, and then resave them. But you're using the common elements that we've already selected. So you use this as the template and then modify as necessary, and then name the macro. Works really well. So that's how we can do the macro and play it. So I'm going to show you another thing that we have here at Simsol that we develop. It's not really flood. It's going to be more for wind. So I can come up here and click on the roof, and I'm going to take an Eagle View report, which is from third party in the roof. So if for you wind adjusters out there, which you can come up and select third party. We do have a question. Dave is asking, I use the macro in the report, and it asks if I want to modify the totals for each line item. Is there a way around that? What I usually do, Dave, is I just hit process it and then just let it dump in, okay? And then I'll just delete the ones that won't. If you put in the original values, the system automatically in the macro will take whatever you define for that area. So it should give you the proper quantities for floor square foot, wall square foot, and ceiling square foot. As far as the numbers go for each, it'll always put in 1. And then you can modify the totals as you need on the quantities for that line item. Liz is saying, I can't find a pocket door on the virtual scope sheet. How do you add the item? There is a pocket door in there, Liz. Let me go in and do this real quick, and then I'm going to show you how to find the pocket door. Okay. All right. So here we have the roofing here. I'm going to go into third party. I'm selecting Eagle View. Okay, so I can, and there's another one called Sky Measure. That's really new. So you can either, everybody's really familiar with the Eagle View, but there's also Sky Measure. So please look into that. That's pretty cool. Now I'm going to click OK. And then from that, I'm looking on the desktop to find the Eagle View sample, which is right here. And there's the XML that I need. Remember that Eagle View is going to give you two pieces of information. It's going to give the PDF for the actual report, the Eagle View report, and it's also going to be accompanied by an XML. I can just double click on that, and guess what? When I did that, it automatically gave the squares for this type of roof. Now, I caution you, always when you take an Eagle View report, always address the waste. So I can come up here and say it's a standard hip, and I'm going to apply a 20%. So my tear off is going to be 25.23, and my waste factor is going to be 20% off that, which is going to give me a total tear off plus waste of 30.24 squares. Once I have that, I can then come up and select done. Well, I can go done or scope. I'm going to go into scope now. And then from scope, it's going to launch the VSS, and this is a prime way to put in your macro that you just made. I'm going to bring it over. I have to bring there we go. Drag over my macro window, and then I can say R&R comp roof with felt, select it. And then it's going to ask me what's the drip edge. I'll put 180. And then from that, when I select it, there's my roof. And then the only thing I need to do is make sure that I can put the turtle vents in. Let's say we have 5. And then any other item that I need to put in. So if my roof jacks, let's say we have 7. I'll show you a little trick here. See what I just did here? Here is the scope number 1, which I have 7, but here I have 1. So I can just come up here and select that on the replace, so I can handle the quantities for all operations of that line item just by hitting 1, 2, and then if I painted it, I could hit 7 and then do that. Works really well. So as I do that and I click it, now I've got my roof built. So for you wind adjusters and you're using the Eagle View or you're using the Sky Measure, please take advantage of that option, which we have on third-party roof. Okay, so that's always a good thing. So I'm going to come up here and click on Done to get out of that. I'm going to come back up here, and then I'm going to go into the master bedroom, double-click, and I'm launching the VSS, and I believe it was Liz that was asking, where's my pocket door? So the easiest way I could tell you is take your mouse, come up to pocket, select it, and there's my pocket type pre-hung hollow corridors or a solid one. So you can do that. Okay, so I can just double click on it, takes me right to it, and then I can do a 1, a 2, and a 7 to paint it. And if you take a look, there they are. Does that answer your question, Liz? Okay. All right, so that's how we can go. And Liz brings up a good question. How do I, if I'm searching for a line item and I can't find it, how do I do that? How would I find that line item? Well, the little key is what you want to do is you want to come over here to VSS, and we want to search for the line item. Now, what I do, and the reason why maybe Liz couldn't find that pocket type is because when she typed it out, she might not have a hyphen or something like that. So what I tell everybody to do is be very broad in your search. And I'm going to come up here and say pocket, P-O-C-K, and that's it. I'm not going to put the door in. So what I'm doing is over here is clicking on go, and then it brings up everything that's associated to a pocket. If I went up here and just type in door here, but see, I just put D in. Oh, it's narrowing my search. So as I do that, these are all my pocket doors that I have in the system. So if you don't try to put, if it's 2 words, don't use the primary search and don't put the 2 words in there. Try to just put 1 word in. because that way you're going to have a lot more control. Dave is asking, do the remove and replace on one screen again for one line item. Okay, so I don't know, Dave, what do you mean by that? Remove and replace one screen again for one line item? I'm not understanding that question. If you can elaborate a little bit more, that'd be excellent. I'll let you type that out, and we'll get to that. Okay, so but that's how you do your search. Okay. Another thing that I'd like to talk about since I'm here is, and a lot of adjusters or a lot of estimators forget to do this, is let's say that I have an item that I would like to keep in there. Let me see what Dave just asked. You entered the remove. Oh, that would be for the waste factor. I'm assuming that's what you're thinking of on the roof, Dave. I hope that's correct. Yeah, what you want to do is if you have anywhere where you have waste, your removal side will be the actual amount that you're tearing off, but then you're going to have to add the waste factor in there. Okay. I want to show you this. Let's say that I have a line item here, which is, let's take our pocket door, for instance, and we have 225. Now, you've done some research. You know that the pre-hung hollow core door for your area is not 225, it's actually 245. So if I double click on this, and then I'm going to come over to the total amount, and I'm going to put in 245. And I hit the tab key, and now it's there. Do you see the override that just came up? Now, if I leave it like this, it's going to put 245, but if I go into another room and pick pocket door, the same thing, it's going to give the original price, and that's not what I want. So if you want to update your estimate so that every time that you click on that pocket door, let's say that you have multiple pocket door entry areas, maybe possibly in the living room or bathroom or whatever, and you want to use that $245 for that cost, if you just take your mouse and then select what's known as LPT. LPT, that's a local pricing table, and that will now come up and put that in. But before I do and select that, I'm going to put a note in. I'm going to say that this is the common price. I'm going to say price in area. And as I do that, I can then come up and hit the LPT button. So when I click on the LPT, that's going to give me the save line item to local pricing table. I'm going to select yes. So as I do that, anytime I hit the pocket door now, it's going to be placed in there. And it also works with the macros as well. Sean asks, can macros be saved and transferred to other computers? The answer is yes, Sean, you may do so. We have a transfer utility called transfer.exe that you can take all your macros and then you can transfer them. But they also will transfer the pricing database as well. So it'll be the GPT, and because it needs that to make it work. So yes, you can use a transfer, but there is another way that you can do it, Sean. What you would do is you would take a dummy claim, right? The easiest way is take a dummy claim, run an area like, for example, whatever the macro name is. So for example, if it is roof, then I can do that. I'll give you an example. So basically what you could do is basically come up, make a new area up, okay, on the new area, name it the thing of the macro, let's say roof. Give it some dimensions. And then once you do that, go into scope and then run your macro. So you would come up here to macros, run a macro. And I'm going to move this over and then do the R&R comp shingle roof and then process it. Now, once I have all these macros that are done, they would be listed over here on your area listing screen. You would just archive that, give it to the other adjuster, and then what he would do is unarchive the file, see all these macro names, and all he has to do is go to list, and he selects it all and then renames it. So that's how you would transfer your macros. That's one way of doing it if you don't use the file transfer utility. Okay, so the next things that I need to show you is some efficiency options. Okay, the one efficiency option is a copy. So if I had the living room here and I have the same scope, I can then hit copy. And the only thing I need to do is change it for whatever it is. Do new dimensions. So let's say that's 15 by 20. And then all the line items for floors, walls, and ceiling will automatically be updated for the new settings. So if I click on scope here, and as soon as it launches, then I could hit the list, and then there's my line items that are associated to the living room are now in the library. And then I can just modify as needed. Okay, and that's the copy. If I had multiple bedrooms, I could clone it. Now, the difference is the same as exact as a copy, but it's just 2 or more. That's what a clone is. So I can come up here and say clone. It's going to clone the bedroom 1, and the only thing I need to do is click on edit, and then take that to bedroom number 2, and then automatically put the dimensions that I want. So as I do that, it will automatically update that room with those dimensions. And I do the same thing for bedroom 1. I rename it to bedroom 3. You get the idea. Now, what is clone really good for? Clone is really good for if you're doing multiple rooms. Like if you were doing an apartment complex, I could take the unit number 101 and clone it 5 times or 10 times. And then I can just change the dimensions on it, and the scope is all the same, and then I'd be done in record time. Okay, so use your copy, use your clone. Okay. Another thing that we have is grouping the areas. So I could come over here and use the group function, which is called new group, select it, and say that this is going to be a unit. Let's say if I was doing an apartment complex, click OK, and you see the group here? I can then come up and then use what's known as drag and drop procedure and just drag the areas that are associated to the group. As you can see, if I double click on that group, there it is. Now, what I can do, now this is really cool. If I have this unit that I need, and I need this estimate to apply to another claim, a totally different claim, I can watch this. This is new for Simsol. You can just highlight the group, right click on it, and then you can copy into another estimate, and it pops it up with the group as well. So if I open up another claim, let me just go to APS. So if I come over here and I just right click on it, paste from another estimate, guess what I've got? There's the units with all the different areas that are associated to the group. Is that not cool? Really nice. Okay, so the next section that we're going to be talking about is going to be reducing the file size. PDF attachments and then taking pictures, the big culprits, okay? What I can tell you about on pictures is that you want to keep your pictures small, and I'm just going to bring up a picture, and I'm going to move this over to the desktop here real quick, and I'm going to find a Swanee flood, as you can see. Double click on it, and these are my pictures. Now this is what taken from your camera. Now you want to set your cameras to the lowest resolution. You don't need that 10 megapixel to make a good picture, okay? So just make sure that your picture is set at the lowest setting in your camera settings. 640 by 480 is optimal. But from what we've seen is cameras are starting to be at 1 meg now. Well, set it at 1 meg. That's good because Simsol will downsample that to 640 by, 800 by 600 automatically for you. Okay, so I'm just going to check the properties of this photo. So as you can see, there's my photo. The size on it is 2.21 megabyte, which is set very large. When it comes into Simsol, it'll be downsized to 800 by 600. Okay, so try to keep your resolution down on your photos. That will really cut back on keeping your file sizes down. All right. Now the next thing that we're going to talk about is the PDF attachments. If you take a look on PDF attachments, they get quite large, and the reason is because of the scanners. So when you come up and you select a scanner, so I'm going to take, for example, an advance payment request that I have right here, and I'm going to set that into my scanner, and then bring my scanner up. It'll take a second to come up, and then I'll move it over. Give me 2 seconds. The scanner is software is loading, and once that's up and running, I'll move that over to the side because I want to show you something. Here we go. So what I'm doing here is I'm moving it over, and what you want to do is make sure when you're trying to keep these your images small, use your standard options. This is your source. And you want to keep, a lot of people like to keep it on color. Don't keep it on color. Keep it, if you want a really good scan, keep it at grayscale. Now you've just reduced the size to half because there's not many pictures. It's like 21 different scans on this. On the 300, on the color, it's many scans. So for example, here I got an auto. Keep your scan resolution right at 100 dpi, and that works out real well. So as I come up and I select it, hold on just a second here, I can then come up and then preview it. So as you can see, I get a very good scan off from that, and I can also turn it, of course, on the scanner. So once I do that, save it to the default, and then I can then come up and then scan it and then save it. That will cut down my size. So when you start to scan things, do not set it at 300 dpi. Set it at 100 dpi. I can put the rotation. I can do the left. I can do the right. I can flip it. So I can flip that over, and then it'll just pop up. Should turn in just a second. Try to do that again one more time. Sorry. Doesn't like this. It only likes to do one area, but you can then save it and then rotate it when you're in your PDF software. So that's what we want to do. We want to save it as a PDF, which you right there. There's a PDF function that you can save it on. I'm going to get out of that, but I just wanted to show you that that's how you can actually save a lot of space if you just scan it at 100 dpi. All right, the next section we're running down very quickly here is I want to show you how to archive your backing up. The most important thing I could stress to you is backup, backup, backup. And in Simsol has a function of backing up called archive. Okay, that's all it is a backup. You're going to take your claim. You're going to mark it on the markup here. Make sure it's in blue, and then you're going to select archive. Please be aware, if you are on the demo copy, you will not see these archive or unarchive. You must be a licensed user in order for these two buttons to be highlighted. I'm going to click on archive. I'm then going to move it over. Here's the window. Move it over, tells me what the size is. Click on browse. Then from browse, you see these are my archives that I have here. As I name it, click on Save, and I can click on Save, and then from that, then I then just select Archive. So once that is completed, then I can then bring it back, okay? And that's how I do it. So now I'm going to bring it back. So I have unarchive. I'm dragging the window over. Hold on just a second. So now, since I've had it backed up to whatever drive that you want, it's a good idea to actually, if you've got Dropbox, you have OneCloud, you have any type of cloud device, save it to that cloud device or save it to Dropbox, and that works out real good. Let me try that again. I'm sorry. Let me take this and do an archive function one more time. So if I do this, I bring the window over, I can then come up, hit Browse, and then from Browse, let me just come up here to, let's say, for example, Dropbox. Now from Dropbox, I can just call this Web, and then click Save. Once I do this and click Archive, I'm now backing up to the cloud. So if something happens to my computer, I lost my computer, I dropped it, or whatever it is, then you can just get a new computer, load Simsol up, load your Dropbox up, and then you're going to then come up and click on Archive. I'm going to bring my window over, and then I'm going to click the Browse button, and then we come up and then select where it's located on the cloud, in this case, Web, double click on it. It found it. I'm going to select it. And once I select it and click on Archive, guys, it's going to go into the trash folder, into the inbox folder, which is located in the system drawers. So watch what I'm going to do. Okay, now that that's in there, I go to the inbox, and then I will have that file. Okay, so that's how I do it. Real easy to do. Test 2, there it is right there. Okay, so that's how we do an archive and unarchiving, okay, of the program. We have a guide for you that we're going to send out for you. And if there's any questions, I'd like to open it up to questions right now. Mathis, can you open up everybody up? Okay. I have Debbie asking, do we have the ability to sort our macros once we have created a number of them? The answer is no, Debbie. I've always wanted that. And we're trying to work on that so that we can take it and then actually move the macros into priority, like in grouping. Like, for example, these will be my roof macros, these are my interior, these are my exterior macros. But we're working on that function. Jim is asking, can a file be archived to more than one location? In other words, can you back up, back up? The answer is yes, Jim, but you have to do it 2 times. You can't just say, I want to go to multiple locations, like I want to go to the local drive plus the cloud. You have to do it 2 times, okay? Tom's asking, how do you empty the trash? Well, that's easy, Tom. What you're going to do is there's a very hard icon. It's hard to see. It's right here next to the username, which is manager. You double click on that, and then it says delete all files and trash. So once I do that, click on yes, they're gone now. See, no files in there. Another way to do it, Tom, is just use your browse button here. Excuse me. Come up there and use that little Nike icon there up there, and then you see empty trash. So there's 2 ways you can empty the trash. Can you the ZOKI? I'm sorry, I don't want to mispronounce your name. Zoki asked, can you archive multiple files at a time? And the answer is definitely yes. So if I come over here and click on all I need to do is mark them using your control key or your shift key, and then I can then come up and then select archive claim if I need to do so. But I can't do it in the all button. See that? I don't have it lit. I have to be on an active drawer in order for this to work. I'm just going to pop on out here real quick. There we go. So as I click on the new drawer, let me just pick some multiple claims in here. There we go. So I've got 3 claims in here. What I can do is I can select all, archive, and then once I save it, I'm going to bring this over. I have to drag the window over. There we go. Click on Browse, and then give it a name. That's all I need to do, okay? So as I do that, I click Save. So then we click on Archive, and off they go. Okay, John Weber is asking, can we do mass depreciation? Yes, you can. The way you do that is that we can come up, go into a file, and if I go to the building estimate information window, which is building estimate here, and I go to depreciation table, I can come up and then put the table in. Now, either it's going to be a trade with age or a trade is what we recommend. So for example, if I need to have this table and I change some general conditions, let me just go to moisture protection. I'm going to take my roofing and I'm going to change it to 10 per se. So I make the changes that I want, okay? What I can do is I can then store the table. I'm going to come over and move this over so you can all see. So there's the table. I can say that this is Jim's table. So as I do that, I click on Done. Now that's been saved. So what I can do now is come up, hit Recall Table. There's Jim's table. Select it, apply it. And it's now putting that in. Is there any other questions I can answer for you? This is your turn. Any other questions? All right, I would like to thank you so much, very much for your time. We are going to continue to do these webinars. What I'd like you to do is if you could email Mathis or Nicole and find out what topics you would like to see. I have some more questions here.
When Nicole got to go home a little early tonight, so we're going to wrap it up here. As you can see, we want to thank you for joining, and we'll be following up with a survey so we can continue to improve upon our efficiency with these webinars. If you have any questions, there's the link there, info@simsol.com. Please give us a call. We also offer free technical support Monday through Friday, hours of 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. That number is 1-800-447-4676. Press option 1. Again, we'd like to thank you for attending.